Something was wrong in Beacon Hills long before anyone understood why. It didn't begin with claws or glowing eyes. It began with a pressure in the air, a heaviness that made the world feel slightly off balance. Beacon Hills had always been a place touched by the supernatural, but this was different. This was a disturbance that reached into the bones of the forest and whispered that something powerful was crossing its borders. Animals felt it first, the shift in the air, the pressure, the fear. Dogs barked at empty corners. Coyotes refused to cross certain paths. Even the wind seemed to move differently, carrying a tension that didn't belong to nature at all. And then came the deer, terrified beyond reason, sprinting through the woods as if fleeing a predator no one could see. It ran straight into Lydia's car, not because it was reckless, not because it was injured, but because something was pushing it, suffocating it, overwhelming it. Scott felt it too, a pulse of fear so primal it didn't belong to the deer at all. It belonged to something else, something coming, something powerful enough to bend the instincts of the natural world. In the woods, Boyd and Erica were already running for their lives, cornered, hunted, not by hunters, but by something far worse. They weren't just being chased, they were being herded, forced into the open, pressured into panic. The forest wasn't protecting them anymore, it was warning them. And then the birds, breaking through the classroom windows, not fleeing but attacking in blind panic, a coordinated strike born from pure terror. Birds don't behave like that unless something is deeply fundamentally wrong. They weren't escaping danger. They were reacting to it. The Alpha Pack's presence pushed Beacon Hills into a supernatural pressure animals couldn't ignore. Animals don't lie. They felt the pack long before anyone else did. The town wasn't being attacked. It was being warned. The first figures to step into the story were two boys in the hallway, Ethan and Aiden. Intimidating. Reckless. Their presence alone stirred chaos, the kind that comes from young alphas still learning how dangerous they really are. They didn't need claws or glowing eyes to make an impact. Their confidence was enough. Their silence was enough. Their arrival was enough. Scott didn't know it yet, but the Alpha Pack had already arrived, and Beacon Hills would never be the same. At the ruins of the old Hale house, the symbol appeared, carved deep into the door frame. A message, a warning, a claim on Derek's territory. The Alpha Pack wasn't declaring war. They were announcing that the war had already begun. The symbol wasn't just intimidation. It was strategy. A psychological strike meant to destabilize Derek before the real conflict even started. And in the hospital elevator, Scott met a man he didn't recognize, a man who spoke softly, with a calmness more dangerous than any threat. His glasses concealed eyes that saw far more than Scott realized. Deucalion. But Scott didn't know that name yet. He didn't know that the man standing beside him had once been a visionary alpha, respected by packs across states. He didn't know that betrayal had twisted that vision into something darker. Ennis arrived first, brutal, towering, unstoppable. His fight with Scott in the elevator wasn't a warning. It was a tactical move, a way to provoke Derek to pull him into the conflict, and to measure the strength of the boy who kept getting in their way. Ennis wasn't subtle. He didn't need to be. His role in the pack was simple. Force, intimidation, pressure. Then came Kaylee. Silent, barefoot, elegant in the way only a predator can be. Her introduction wasn't subtle. She struck the girl who knew too much, not to kill her, but to silence her. And Deucalion spoke to her like her fate was already decided. He wasn't just the leader, he was the architect. Every move, every strike, every appearance was part of a larger design. Isaac felt them before he saw them. The twins, the memory of being kidnapped, the fear, the anger, the violence, and then the fight. Brief, brutal. Isaac wasn't just fighting two alphas. He was fighting the trauma they had carved into him. But the real display of power came in the hallway, when Ethan and Aiden merged. Two bodies becoming one monster, a super alpha. Scott and Isaac never stood a chance. It wasn't meant to be a fair fight. It was meant to be a demonstration. And when Deucalion arrived, he didn't stop the fight. He corrected it, cutting his own alphas, disciplining them like children. This wasn't a pack, it was a hierarchy. And at the top stood a man who called himself the Demon Wolf. The abandoned mall became the first real battleground. Scott arrived with Isaac, but Deucalion was already waiting. "You didn't come alone," he said, not to Scott about Isaac, but to Derek and his pack closing in behind him. Deucalion wasn't surprised. He was prepared. He wanted Derek there. He wanted the confrontation. It was the beginning of the Alpha Pack's downfall. Inside the mall, chaos erupted. Ennis tore into Cora and Boyd with ferocity. Derek fought him with everything he had. Their clash wasn't just physical, it was ideological. Derek fought to protect, Ennis fought to dominate, and together they fell from the ledge. Ennis was dying, dragged to the vet, barely breathing, his strength fading. Deaton tried to keep him alive, but Deucalion had already made his decision. He ended Ennis's life himself. Not out of mercy, not out of necessity, but because it served his vision, his pack, his power, and because framing Derek's pack for the violence made his own alphas easier to manipulate, easier to aim at Derek. Kaylee's rage came next, her revenge, her cruelty, her demand that Derek continue the violence Ennis began and kill one of his own, not to win a battle, but to break him into the kind of alpha the pack believed he should be. Derek was forced to kill Boyd, not because Boyd was the enemy, but because Deucalion wanted Derek to feel the power of killing one of his own, to break him, to shape him, to turn him into the kind of alpha Deucalion believed all alphas should be. But Derek wasn't like the Alpha Pack. And that was exactly why Deucalion wanted him broken. This wasn't a war, it was a purge. Ethan and Aiden were the first to break. Yes, they wanted freedom, a life without constant bloodshed. But more than anything, they were tired. Tired of Deucalion's cruelty. Tired of being weapons instead of people. Tired of the manipulation. They defected. They chose to protect Lydia. They aligned themselves with Scott's pack, and when Callie came for them, they fought back. But Jennifer, the Darroch, ended it. She killed Kaylee, effortlessly, brutally. The twins tried to attack her, but Jennifer struck them down without hesitation. She showed Lydia her true face, a face twisted by sacrifice and power. The Darroch's true form. The Alpha Pack was falling apart, piece by piece. Death by death, and only one alpha remained. Scott and Deucalion walked into the abandoned distillery together. Not as allies, not as enemies, but as two forces colliding against a greater threat. The air inside was thick with tension. The kind that comes when two leaders recognize the weight of the moment. Jennifer didn't come alone. Derek came with her, manipulated, desperate, clinging to the hope she offered him, believing she could protect his family when he had nowhere else to turn. She had been his former love, and she used that connection to pull him deeper into her own fight. Jennifer and Derek attacked. Their blows meant nothing. Deucalion's true form, the demon wolf, emerged. A monster forged by anger, loss, and ambition. His transformation wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. The man he once was had been buried under years of violence and betrayal, but the blood moon changed everything. Jennifer transformed, her true form unleashed. She tore into Deucalion with a fury born from rage. Scott stepped forward, not as a beta, not as a fighter, but as something new. He broke Jennifer's barrier. Not with strength, not with anger, but with will. A true alpha. Deucalion saw it. Jennifer felt it. And the world shifted. Deucalion struck her, weakening Jennifer, ending her reign, ending the war. She didn't die by his hand, but his blow ended her path. Peter Hale would finish what Deucalion started, unseen by anyone else, and Scott let Deucalion go because power doesn't make a monster. Choices do. Scott changed Deucalion's worldview. He reminded him of the man he used to be, before fear turned him into the demon wolf. Deucalion spoke to Derek in the loft. He revealed his vision, the philosophy that shaped the demon wolf, the belief that power comes from sacrifice, and the story of how Talia Hale once tried to show him a different path, a path he rejected after Gerard's betrayal shattered everything he believed in. Since then, he'd waited for a true alpha who could prove Talia right, someone who could remind him of the man he once was. Scott became that proof. He met Scott again in the elevator, in the same place they first crossed paths, but this time Deucalion wasn't just passing through. He spoke softly, telling Scott he wanted to see what he was truly made of. A test, a measure, a moment to observe the potential he had only hinted at in the loft. The kind of rare strength Talia Hale once believed existed in certain alphas. Deucalion watched Scott in the mall, in the cellar, in every choice Scott made. Scott's eyes flickered during the fight with Ennis, a spark Deucalion sensed instantly. He knew what Scott would become, long before Scott did. The Alpha Pack didn't just arrive in Beacon Hills. They shaped it, scarred it, defined it, and, in the end, they created the one thing they feared most, a true alpha.